The brave men and women who have served our country faithfully often need our help to successfully transition back into civilian life. Brave Radio is here to highlight veterans and the companies who are making a difference in our veteran community. And now, the host of Brave Radio, Eve Nasby.
Welcome to Brave Radio, in conjunction with Military Mondays, where we're focused on engaging our veterans and making a difference in our business community. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here to highlight the best and brightest that San Diego and this nation have to offer. We have a great show planned today, so let's get started. First with us in studio is Celeste Blodgett from ESET. Celeste, welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you,
This
Eve.
is like your second time around. I didn't scare you off the first time.
No, I don't scare easy.
You don't? No, not at all. You're like, I don't know, 5'7", blonde, perfect. Yeah,
Thank
you don't
you.
scare easily. You probably know Taekwondo too, right?
I don't.
Well, you are the Vice President of Human Resources for an incredible company here called ESET. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, ESET is a internet software company, and basically we're the guys that keep you safe online. So basically protect all of your data and resources. So we like to say that we kill all the malware on your computer.
Yeah, you do keep me safe from those bad guys.
Absolutely.
You can get bugs from just about anywhere.
That's right. And there's so much right now, cyber, theft and everything else. So again, good guys.
It's insidious.
It really is.
So you guys are focused on, and the reason we're having you back on the show, and you were also on Operation American Dream.
That's right.
With Craig
you.
Sewing, TV. You're like this media maven now. Spokesperson for ESET.
Because I know you eat. That's
so
right.
Tell us about why you are passionate about hiring veterans.
I'm really passionate for several reasons. First of all, my father was in the military, and my nephew is just graduated from West Point a few weeks ago. Yay!
With honors, right?
Yes,
This
he
is
was
a big
top
deal.
10% of his class. He's very
Amazing.
smart, and he's a wonderful human being. And just being at that graduation, the honor and the respect and everything else that these gentlemen and ladies, do for the country and what they go through in just the schooling, it gives me such, I'm just so proud, not just of my nephew, but, of all of those that are, going through those schools and serving. Makes you really proud to be an American.
It does. If we're going to be civilians, by golly, we can do something that's of value for our country
agree.
and for our military.
Absolutely.
And you, as the VP of HR, you get a chance to influence the hiring decisions within your organization, and you are choosing to take a closer look at our military.
That's right.
So from a business perspective, we know that it's the right thing to do, but talk about it from a business perspective. Why is it a strategic business decision to hire a veteran?
Sure. Well, the veterans that we currently have at ESET, the type of employees and the type of skills and that they bring to the organization, and I've mentioned this before, is that they're always very timely and punctual. In fact, they usually show up before work ahead of time. They're ready to go.
Right.
They're organized. They take direction really well, yet they're also very strategic. So they don't just, necessarily just follow orders, but they also are take leadership roles and activate very quickly. They also take on roles like in our organization, we have safety teams, and they usually take an active lead role. They're the people that are typically like, I don't mind being the last person out of the building. Everyone else is trying to get out of the building and fire drill and everything else. And they're typically the calm ones, slowly going down, making sure everyone's okay. But they're very respectful and professional. And we've just really, been very blessed by having a lot of military in our company. Like to have a lot more, I'd have to say. We're definitely in the building stages, but that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm also working with other organizations trying to get more attention out to the military. So, come to ESET and hopefully apply for a position there.
So talking about positions open at ESET, for our listeners who might be looking to change jobs, to find a job, or if you know someone that's looking for a fantastic company to work for, you can't go wrong with working with Celeste. That's for sure.
Thank you.
What types of positions? You're welcome. What types of positions do you have open?
So currently right now, we don't have a ton of positions, but the ones that typically are continual are customer care reps. Any technical position is usually one that we're constantly, continuously seeking for. And right now we have 2 sales positions open, and our biggest position, which we'd love to fill very soon, is our VP of Finance role.
Okay. So with customer service technology positions, what type of experience are you looking for?
Customer care representatives, it's nice if they have some technical aptitude skills because they help, the customers troubleshoot. But we're really looking also for very friendly people that can handle pressure. Customer care is a very difficult role to do. In fact, probably one of the hardest roles in the company. And that is that you sit and you're working with customers all day. And sometimes customers are polite and sometimes customers are not so polite.
Right.
And they have to stay calm and be able to help them and not take things personal. So having some technical aptitude and having a really good personality, positive and calming presence is usually the skill sets we look for.
You're listening to Brave Radio in partnership with Military Mondays, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies like ESET that make a difference in our community and in our nation. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or give us a call at 619-244-3000 or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm here in studio with the Vice President of Human Resources of a company here in San Diego called ESET, Celeste Blodgett. Celeste, you are also very much involved in our community doing nonprofit work. Talk about that and what you're doing out there. I think it's amazing.
Well, a couple of the different causes that I'm really passionate about. Number one is I sit on the board of the San Diego Police Foundation. I'm very passionate about our police officers. And again, it's very parallel in the fact that military and our police force are very similar in the fact that they go out there, they protect you, they keep you safe, and they're very respectful. I know that the San Diego, I shouldn't say San Diego, but police force across the nation has gotten some bad reviews, and it really disheartens me because, I sit there and think of them as the heroes.
Yes.
They're the ones giving their life every day when they wake up. They go out on the street and they don't know if they'll come home or not.
Right.
And that's like our military.
Right.
And so I'm very passionate about that and, work with the women in blue. So we recognize the women that are serving on our streets and in our laboratories, helping with the crime lab. And, recently we did the big Women in Blue luncheon. It was very successful. Shelley Zimmerman, our chief of police, was there to present and to speak. And we also offered our first ever Women in Cybersecurity Award.
Wow.
Which was fantastic because this is, women that are up and coming in the technical world also. And so that was a tremendous, great opportunity. We also work with United Through Reading, which is a program that the military does where the soldiers and military personnel read a story to their kids and they're taped. And then those tapes are sent back to their children so that they can read along with their father and mother.
Gosh.
And it's heartfelt when you see these soldiers out there and, wherever they might be stationed.
You're videotaping from Iraq or Afghanistan or Uzbekistan or whatever the stands are.
And they're in their children's, family room, their home, reading, along with their children. So, and one of our employees, Jamal, he was in the Navy, and years ago he said he had that experience, and he said it was an amazing thing for his kids to have of him. So, things like that. We also do support the 3 wise men in town. And
there's only 3 wise men in town? We're in trouble.
You're funny. You should look them up online. It's a pretty
Okay, so tell me about the 3 wise men.
Well, the 3 wise men, you go on and do a little research, but what they are, there were 3 brothers, and they each served somehow in the military, and 2 of them actually lost their lives in the line of duty. And so there was the one brother that is left serving still. But one of our San Diego champions started this foundation to give back to soldiers that are out there. And they have typically it's like a fitness challenge, and it's usually on the U.S. Midway.
Okay.
And I'm not sure the month that they do it, but they do these challenges like bodybuilders and everything, and they raise money in support for the military.
Wow.
So that's a great one. And then the third one that I'm trying to remember, what was our third one we do? like I said,
that's okay. You're so involved in this community, Celeste. It blows my mind. I don't know how you have time to fit everything in. So, Celeste, you have this amazing company, amazing opportunities at ESET. Mm-hmm. You've got customer service positions open. You've got a VP of finance position open, technology positions, sales positions, and you are eager to find great veteran candidates for these positions.
Absolutely.
How do they and all of our listeners who are interested in these positions get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to online and go to www.eset.com, and that's ESET.com. Go to our career pages and go ahead and apply. Also, if you find me on LinkedIn, it's Celeste Blodgett. You can send me a note, and I'll be sure to connect with you.
That's so great. Celeste, once again, thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for all you're doing to attract and hire and retain our great military forces at your company, ESET.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Thanks for being here.
All right. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. We have got some amazing people coming back on the show. We're going to take a short break, so don't go away. Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the Brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.us.
Easter Seals Work First Military and Veteran Services provides free one-on-one personalized employment assistance for local veterans through their Bob Hope Veteran Support Program. Easter Seals' team of employment specialists is dedicated to achieving successful long-term job placements that benefit both the veteran and the employer. Learn more about how you can receive services, connect with a future employee, or make a donation by visiting easterseals.com/SouthernCal. That's easterseals.com/SouthernCal.
Hey, boss.
Yeah?
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased and, man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who can just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
There's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Amerit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today. Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio in partnership with Military Mondays, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. As promised, we are back to speak with our good friend, Dr. Steve Scroggs. Dr. Scroggs, welcome to our show.
I'm glad to be here, Eve.
When I first met you, we were at an event which our listeners know a lot about psych armor. We've had Marjorie Morris on the show more than once, and we're talking about PTSD and the mental health and all those issues that surround veterans today. So again, thank you for being a part of the show, because I know that those subjects are near and dear to your heart. And we're going to talk about that and dispelling the myths that people have about veterans in combat and PTSD. But first, if you could, because you're a pretty big deal out there on the East Coast. You've got a lot of awards. You're doing some amazing things. So tell our listeners about you.
Well, let me just start by saying if someone had told me back when I was in Davidson ROTC that one day that I would be working for a behavioral health company, I would have laughed, especially after I went to Ranger School, and I was the first guy from Davidson College ROTC that got the Ranger tab, and it was 12 whole weeks out of my summer after my junior year. But we are all products of our formative stimuli and the people that were around. And I went from being a pre-med major who had been on a wait list to go to Emory Med School to become a medical doctor to suddenly a airborne ranger who had the same date of rank as all of the West Pointers. And so, I heard my colonel call Emory and say, "Are you going to accept this guy?" And they said, "Well, we'll tell you in August." And they said, "Well, no, we need to know now." And so they said, "If you need to know now, no." So suddenly I was on this new trajectory into the military. And rather than, they thought they were doing me a favor, they were going to give me, I think, Medical Service Corps, where I would learn health administration. And I basically said, if I've got to spend 3 years in the Army, the last thing I want to do is push papers and watch doctors all day. I want to know what the Army is really like. I want to go infantry. And this was 1 year after Vietnam ended. So I went on this path thinking I was going to spend 3 years in the Army. And then a little over 20 years later, I was still there, and loving it. So.
Wow. And you made quite a significant impact because you went on to write a book on Army relations with Congress. I think it's called Thick Armor, Dull Sword, Slow Horse, published in 2000. I mean, so your time served in the Army wasn't just there. You took that experience to a whole new level.
It was one of those careers that it's not just the relationships that you make. You don't make a lot of money in the Army, but what you do make is you've got some of the closest friends and relationships that you can ever imagine. And that's why vets want to talk to other vets. That's why peer support's so important for the military and for our veterans. But I mean, I had the opportunity of doing basic training. I had 2 tours over in Korea. I did not go to combat. I always was preparing myself for combat, but I went in 1976 and got out in 96. But I had 2 tours in Korea, one in the 2nd Infantry Division where I arrived 1 week after President Park of South Korea was assassinated. And then I also had, and that was an extended tour, and then I had another extended tour up in Panmunjom where the axe murders took place a decade later. And of course, that's where I met my blonde from New Jersey wife, who was a diplomat at the time. So life is very interesting. I had the opportunity to teach at West Point as an ROTC guy, and so I was teaching in the Department of Social Sciences with guys like Dave Petraeus and many, many other great minds. And then I got to do a congressional fellowship with the chairman of the Budget Committee and ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, John Spratt, and that was just invaluable. And from that, parlayed that to work for the Secretary of the Army Legislative Liaison. So when you combine all of those different experiences, in a way, it sort of pointed me to this kind of work.
And you've got such a rich background, too, of teaching and educating and obviously teaching at West Point. So now let's fast forward into the company that you're working for today. I mean, you've held a lot of different executive level positions with various organizations, but I mean, Beacon Health Options, tell us a little bit about this company.
Well, Beacon Health Options, we recently were purchased by Beacon Health Strategies. And so Beacon Health Strategies purchased Value Options and became Beacon Health Options. We're the largest behavioral health and wellness company in the nation, really. We also have work internationally in the UK. And so basically, because of my experience working in Sec Army Legislative Liaison, I got involved with TRICARE because the House Armed Service Committee and Senate Armed Services Committee had jurisdiction over the TRICARE program. So because of that experience, I learned healthcare and worked as head of government affairs for a company called Sierra Military Health Services, and Value Options was our exclusive behavioral health contractor for that contract. Now, when that contract expired 2 years later, Value Options came to me and asked me to join and do federal government affairs for them, and that was 10 years ago, and it's just an amazing team. I mean, we had the good fortune to, at this particular time, to administer military one-source Coast Guard support. We're the exclusive behavioral health partner for Humana Military Services for the South region. It's just an amazing company with very high standards, and it's one of those companies that I said, okay, when I was in the military for those 20 years, I thought behavioral health was one of those touchy-feely Oprah things. You know, I had no idea what behavioral health and the mental health aspect of, and I missed a lot of opportunities in command where I could have been part of the solution. But when you think about the time period 76 to 96, you just basically thought about charging hell with a bucket of water, and the whole thing of stressors just wasn't on the template at that particular time. It's much different now, and the not only the senior leadership, but the leadership going down through the ranks has a much better appreciation and understands the importance of mental health. But as you and I have spoken before, Eve, the stigma surrounding behavioral health, not just in the military, but throughout all of American society, has hindered proper and timely treatment for all Americans.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs, or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here with our friend, Dr. Steve Scroggs, out of the East Coast, and we're talking about behavioral health with veterans. Now, PTSD is the elephant in the room. Dr. Scroggs, we had a huge event, a very successful event out here in San Diego on Thursday. We had a room full, standing room only, of employers who want to know about hiring veterans. And we had a panel from Oracle, Microsoft, WD-40, Cal State San Marcos, and Ashford University, all experts in hiring veterans and creating programs within their organization to hire veterans. And one of the elephants in the room, and we addressed it head on, was that, gee, I think if you were in combat, you probably have PTSD, and so therefore, I don't want to hire you. So when we first met at the Psych Armor event, Dr. Scroggs, you and I were talking about these ridiculous myths that, and in all honesty, if you don't know what you don't know. So tell us a little bit about these myths that exist with people, hiring people with PTSD.
Well, I was equally frustrated about this phenomenon. I actually had a good buddy of mine that, and I'm not going to name the institution, but it's this big memorial public museum that's in Washington, D.C., that has hired a lot of veterans. And I remember this combat vet saw that there was a VIP needed to be escorted, and he was told by his civilian supervisor, no, not you. I don't want you going all PTSD on them.
That is ridiculous.
He said that in front of some other people. And not only did it knock the air out of the initiative of this great warrior public servant serving while this guy was going to Pizza Hut every Friday night. But he ended up leaving. And that museum and organization lost the services of that guy about a month or two later. But it goes to this problem that because of the well-intentioned focus in many cases of trying to get this 1%, the timely services that they both have earned and deserved, there is this perception that in some way that they're damaged, that that they're more likely to have the PTSD. And what it does is it perpetuates a larger misunderstanding of what PTSD is and diverts the attention away from the larger American population who've never worn uniform, who basically are walking around with post-traumatic stress disorder luggage.
So how do you get, if you're in the civilian world, how do you get PTSD? Talk about some of the causes.
Sure. I mean, first of all, just like sexual assault in the military, sexual assault, as everybody knows, whether it's on college campuses, the study says that, even though college campuses are a focus right now, women who are not at the colleges are even more vulnerable to sexual assault attack. And it's not just women, it's men who are often sexually assaulted. And when that happens, that is a huge trauma, and but it's not something you're going to want to talk about necessarily. You might not even basically go and report it. It's usually underreported. So that's one way. Accidents, traumas, fires, natural and man-made disasters. There is a plethora of folks over a lifetime, maybe childhood experiences, teenage experiences, that are carrying luggage. You've heard the statistic there, 1 in 4 Americans have some mental health problem that's walking around. Yeah. So think about that. Think of every 4 people. And these are not folks in uniform, but 1 out of every 4 folks that you associate with whatever room you're sitting in or group that you're surrounding yourselves with have some kind of mental health problem. Then why would we ever try to tag a veteran who's proud of his or her service with that very stigmatized condition just because they have agreed to serve their country and volunteered to do it?
That's right.
So
that's right.
I wrote a blog on that, just saying PTSD, not just a veteran problem, and I gave statistics to basically talk about the fact that most PTSD is not the debilitating kind. You hear about it because they are tragic. PTSD is so severe that the person can't work anymore. But most PTSD is mild PTSD or moderate. And the only people that might show manifestations of that, it's not going to be at work. It's going to probably be at home with a spouse and that type of thing.
Exactly.
So, again, it's this misunderstanding of the disease, of the condition, and it misdirects where the focus with the larger population needs to be focused on.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here with Dr. Steve Scroggs, and we are talking about mental health in veterans. We're talking about PTSD. We're talking about emotional health. There's so much out there. And to your point, Dr. Scroggs, as you were talking about, 1 in 4 people have a mental illness. You're sitting in your office. You're sitting in your cubicles. You're sitting on the freeway. Look around. 1 in 4. And if you're not one of them, then there's 3 other people you get to choose from. And so are they going to get violent? Probably not. Our good friend Marjorie Morrison said, hey, Eve, you know what? If you've got PTSD, you're less likely to be the violent type. You're less likely to be that person. You might need accommodations if you've got PTSD. So, Dr. Scroggs, if you could talk about some of the accommodations that employers may consider when they're hiring or they've hired people with PTSD and they want to make a comfortable environment for them.
Well, it's always going to vary, but partly it's just making sure that the workplace that they are coming to understands that this is somebody that maybe just came from a combat theater, that, you hear some stories where people think it's funny to blow up a bag and then pop the bag behind somebody that's got post-traumatic stress. Well, that's a stupid thing to do.
Right.
And it would be a stupid thing to do if somebody had just, come out of, I guarantee you, just what we saw down in Orlando, early Sunday morning, there are many people that are going to be traumatized. They're going to have post-traumatic stress disorder because of that.
That's right.
So if you wouldn't do it to them, why would you do it to a veteran?
That's right.
So again, what you do is you just make sure that the individual that comes in, you should try to set up what I call a sponsorship program or a mentorship program, where you have, if you've got other veterans or if you've got folks with military experience that can actually talk and help them understand the culture of the organization, especially if they're just now coming out of military service. Think about using culture to change culture. When I wrote about my book, the Army was seen as the most honest and effective, but almost to a fault. And, so what you have to do if there's dysfunctional aspects of your culture, you don't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, because the culture's there for a reason, because it serves a purpose. But what you do is you try to think, okay, we want these people not only to be hired, but to be retained. So as military folks went from PCS, permanent change of station, from one post to another post, one base to another base, they usually received a sponsor letter from the receiving command. And it was a family that, maybe if you had kids, this was a family with kids. If you were a bachelor, it'd be a bachelor or a bachelorette. And it was somebody that someone you could talk to, you could ask the stupid questions to about the command. Why wouldn't we do that in our jobs?
That's right.
And to be quite honest, don't just do that for veterans, do that for all new employees. But it's those kind of options that you can do. And of course, most cases are mild. Most cases you might not even know about it. But if it is a moderate to severe, what you would do is, and what I would always recommend, is you incorporate a lot of the resources and counsel that would be free to that company from the VA, and would be no cost to the employer, and they can actually provide some very detailed counsel on workplace accommodations tailored to that individual and what their specific, diagnosis is.
Excellent. Dr. Scroggs, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages, and we're going to talk about what are the resources that are out there for veterans. You're listening to Brave Radio in partnership with Military Mondays, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs. Give us a call at 619-244-3000 or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, and we will be right back after this short break to continue our conversation with Dr. Steve Scroggs. Don't go away.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased, and man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who can just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
There's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Amerit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today.
Easter Seals Work First Military and Veteran Services provides free one-on-one personalized employment assistance for local veterans through their Bob Hope Veteran Support Program. Easter Seals' team of employment specialists is dedicated to achieving successful long-term job placements that benefit both the veteran and the employer. Learn more about how you can receive services, connect with a future employee, or make a donation by visiting easterseals.com/SouthernCal. That's easterseals.com/SouthernCal.
Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the Brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.us. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Welcome back. We have our good friend, Dr. Steve Scroggs from Beacon Health out on the East Coast, talking to us this evening about mental health, PTSD, other issues that veterans face. And so, Dr. Scroggs, I'd like to bring it back around and let's talk about the veterans. What sorts of resources are available to our veterans out there?
Well, I can just tell you, I remember before I was lucky enough to meet my current wife, I went through a divorce while I was teaching at West Point, and I was devastated. I would have loved to have had a military one source at that particular time. My parents had divorced, and I had sworn I would never get divorced. And lucky we didn't have kids at that time, but it would have been great. So Military One Source, and I'd like to give you, the folks listening in, it's Military One Source, 1-800-342-9647. 1-800-342-9647. That is the most living legend program that it's not just counseling, financial counseling, personal relationship counseling, coaching for, healthy lifestyle, just getting in better shape. But they have translation services in case you're married to someone from Brazil or the Philippines, and you've got to have a document, a birth certificate translated. We've got those services. If suddenly you've got a new wife and she doesn't speak English well, you can call at 2:00 in the morning and you can get interpretation services so that triage consultant can understand everything she's saying. It's almost like you're at the UN and somebody is translating. So it's this great service, but it's not just for military and all statuses of reserve component, but right now as it exists, 6 months after you get your DD-214, veterans are still eligible to use Military One Source, where they can use, suddenly, you got your transition assistance program and it was a fire hose. Right. You didn't have your spouse there. You probably should have. But anyway, she or he wasn't there. And suddenly you've got all of these questions about either your old benefits or about what can the VA do for me? Again, you've got this 24/7 service standing by to assist you. But I'll be quite honest, the veterans, because they say I'm out of the military right now, they're not calling Military One Source. Now, there's discussion about getting that 6-month extended to a full year, and we're keeping our fingers crossed on that because so many veterans, they're in a haze. They're getting new jobs, or maybe they had a job lined up, and after 2 weeks, they found out that job was just not what they wanted. So they're going 90 miles an hour, and they're trying to keep all the crystal balls in the air. So that is just one great resource. The other great resource is the Veterans Crisis Line. If whatever happens and all the stressors and support structures abandon you, and everything just seems to be coming down on you at one time. You should have this number 1-800-273-8255 for the Veterans Crisis Line. I want to go back. Military One Source. One of the great things is for for folks that are in scope that were within that 6 month, we actually have real peers that can talk with you anytime. So Military One Source, Veterans Crisis Line, and even for folks that are in the Coast Guard, because, they're one of our uniformed military services, there's a CG support program, 24/7 resource for assisting Coast Guard active duty reserves and civilians and those folks that are approaching becoming veteran status.
So militaryOneSource.mil is the website that they can go on to. So it's Military One Source and ONE. So the number one is spelled out .mil. And you have a number of things to choose from, like you talked about: family relationships, financial and legal, health and wellness, education and employment, on and off base living, deployment and transition. I mean, you name it, you can get help with just about anything. And it's on Facebook. So how easy is that?
They never say no.
Yeah.
Even if for some reason you found out you were not eligible, like, to be quite honest, as a retiree, I'm not eligible for Military One Source. But if I called up and I had a big problem, they would at least provide me resources in the community that might help Steve Scroggs out as a retiree. So, I mean, it's just and one of the things that's really cool is we have it's something like 64% of the folks that answer the call are all master's level folks in either behavioral health, social work. I mean, these are very, very smart folks, but they're not there to do, heavy duty medical counseling. That's for TRICARE. But what they are is they're problem solvers. But, 64% of those are military affiliated. So they're veterans or they're military spouses. Or one of the best kind of triage consultant that you can get is the mother of a son or daughter that has deployed. And every time a person calls that triage consultant, it's like, I couldn't do this for my own child when they were in harm's way, but I'm doing it for this. So you can't train that kind of empathy, even though we put an enormous amount, over 6 weeks of initial training before they get to talk to any caller calling in. And it's just a great, great resource, but that's very, very important. And I would like there's this one resource that for whatever reason, veterans just don't know about, and I just don't maybe think that there's been the necessary resources to advertise it. But it's an online resource by the VA, and it is fantastic. It's called Make the Connection, and it's a VA online resource that connects veterans and their friends and family members, and that's very key. It's not just for veterans, but for their friends, their ranger buddies, and their family members with information, resources, and solutions to issues affecting their lives. And I tell you, you just need to go on that. Make the Connection, I think it's .com, and just check it out. And if you know a veteran that's having some problems, you go check it out, get smart, and reach out to them.
Yeah, it's maketheconnection.net. I just looked it up, maketheconnection.net. There's videos on here. There's hundreds of veteran stories on here. So yes, to your point, this looks like an amazing resource for our veterans. Now, I know you've been at Beacon Health for a long time. Talk about, and I know that you guys look to hire and attract veterans, which is what we do for a living. Talk about why you guys are focused in on hiring veterans. What do they add to the workplace?
I tell you, and especially, I'm not a combat veteran. I always, like I said, I had 2 tours in Korea where I always thought the next war was most likely. But I got out in 96, and I see all of these young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and coasties going over and fighting, and the experiences that they get vis-a-vis their counterparts back here, especially the young ones, the ones that are right out of high school, they're high school grads or maybe right out of college. They are acting as emissaries in small villages. They have learned how to weather personal and organizational stresses. Talk about individuals that know how to adapt to rapid change. one thing that an employer is always looking for is somebody that they can count on to get up every day and go to work. That sounds very simple, but as an employer, you'll know you can't always bank on that. But if you get a military vet coming in, that's just sort of ingrained. And you work until the work is done. It's hard to imagine any military unit that's not culturally and ethnically diverse. It's the thing I talked about earlier, why I stayed in 20 years. It sure wasn't for the money, but it was that great pride and belonging. There's folks I can call at 3 o'clock and saying, hey, X, Y, or Z, I'm in trouble. They're going to say, where are you? And how long will it take me to get to you? I mean, that's the kind of support structures that you have in the military, and you bring that kind of teamwork and loyalty to your workplace. They watch out for their coworkers, but they expect the same in return. So if suddenly they're being treated differently, that's not going to be a good organizational culture for them.
So what are some of the, sorry to interrupt, but what are some of the challenges in the workplace for veterans right now? What do you see those challenges as being?
Well, it used to be just being able to get them a job. 4 years ago, I was really upset that here, just because, we were drawing down from Iraq and Afghanistan, right at the same time we had a recession, and the unemployment, because folks were thinking, oh my gosh, got two people, relative set of skill sets. I'm going to hire this non-veteran because this guy's been, or lady's been trained to, qualify with all these weapons. They might go, Rambo on me or something, really stupid kind of things. But it was showing up in the unemployment rates for our veterans. So our large companies over the last couple of years have really stepped up. Granted, with a lot of administration support, federal support, but our large companies have really almost wiped out the unemployment with our veterans. Now, where the gap is, the unique problem that we have right now is that it's retaining them. And think about this. They were missing their daughters and sons' birthdays. Maybe their marriage fell apart because they were over there what they felt was an important mission. They had purpose. Many of the jobs, well-intentioned jobs that they have, they're being underutilized for all this wealth of experiences that I was talking about, that sort of can-do, complying with workplace rules, adhering to set of professional standards. Those are things that they are willing to do, but if they don't see they have a sense of purpose at their particular job, having a job is good, and it takes away from the workplace, the home stressors because they have a salary coming in. But where we see a gap is with the medium and small size companies. And it's small companies where most jobs are generated. And it's those small companies that could boom and benefit from having veterans on their team because they're multitaskers. They're used to, hey, okay, have you seen this commercial where the guy plays all these different roles? I'm supply, I'm, catalog department, but it's the same guy, just changes his voice. Well, veterans can do that because every time you learn one skill in the military, they move you off and you have to learn another one. So that is something. If you've left a job that had meaningful purpose and you've made sacrifices for that, and you're in a job that just seems sort of like you're going through the motions, that's a job that the veteran would really like to leave and find a job where they really do feel they have purpose and connection with the workplace. So my challenge is to any small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are listening to this, take the lead of those large businesses and really put a focus, because you will be thanking me 6 to 7 months. And forget all that stuff about, my gosh, what if they come in and they cause trouble in the workplace? they are your sheepdogs. Think about the 3 guys that were on the train, over in France. They heard something, and all 3 of them popped up and charged the guy. They'll be part of your solution. They will not be part of your problem.
And you know what? Amazon did a study a few years ago over a 2-year period of time and showed that the MBA managers were outperformed by the non-MBA but veteran managers 2-to-1. So they outproduce their civilian counterparts. Any CEO in America will tell you that they get promoted twice as fast. They're twice as productive. Why wouldn't you want to hire a veteran? They know how to lead. They know how to follow. It's an amazing thing. So Dr. Scroggs, thank you so much for pointing that out. I think there's so much value in hiring a veteran. I think there's a lot of stigmatisms out there that we yet have to dispel. And thank you for playing a big part of that and being on our show today to talk about these ridiculous things that people that just don't know any better think about veterans. And so thank you again. Is there anything else you'd like to add? We're kind of winding down and running out of time, but I want to leave the platform open to you.
Well, the last thing I would say, and one of the reasons why I'm still at Beacon Health Options, is I do feel I know what my purpose is right now, and the military has always been leaders. And this stigma about not asking for help because of this dark ages kind of notion that you're weak-minded if you're having mental health concerns. We've got a program, we started a program, Stamp Out Stigma, but the Stamp Out Stigma now is being handled by the Association of Behavioral Health, and all of mental health companies are now behind it. But the military, if you can get the military understanding, every veteran that's listening to this understands that stigma is not their own individual opponent, but it's your nation's opponent with all the civilians out there, and they're looking at the high regard, the institutional high regard of our military as a shining example. And if the warriors, if the veterans can go and show that it is cool to ask for help, just like when you get a temperature, you get a rash on your arm, you automatically go to the doctor. Same for behavioral health. And if we had more people doing that early on, we would not see these disasters where folks have ignored behavioral health for 20 years, 30 years, just like if you ignored, cancer for X number of years without dealing with it. There'd be some horrible consequences to that. It's the same. So anyway, that's my larger point. The military is the tip of the spear in fighting stigma against mental health for the larger population in America.
Dr. Steve Scroggs from Beacon Health, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. I think our listeners learned a lot. I know that I did. So thank you again for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm Eve Nasby, and you've been listening to Brave Radio in partnership with Military Mondays here on KCBQ AM 1170 The Answer. If you want to find out more about how you can hire top veteran talent, or if you're interested in being a guest on our show, call me at 619-244-3000, 619-244-3000. Visit our website at www.thebrave.us or send us a tweet at Brave Jobs. Like our Facebook page to keep up to date with all the latest news and trends. Keep that dial right here on KCBQ AM 1170, because up next is my good friend Andrea Kay. She's the daughter of 2 Marines and a patriot who loves America and our military. From all of our guests and me, thanks for joining us. And until next Monday, may God bless our veterans and God bless America.
Thanks for listening to Brave Radio. If you know a veteran looking for work, or if your company is hiring, call Eve at Brave at 619-244-3000. Give her a tweet at Brave Jobs and connect with them on Facebook. To be a guest on the show, visit thebrave.us.